And I felt at that moment like, okay, I have got to step up as a Jew so that I can speak out with more authority against Israel. I don't actually believe that anymore. I believe everybody has the right to speak up, and I believe everybody should feel that they're an authority as a human being.
We're dreaming the world to come, spiraling in time, dreaming alive, dreaming alive, dreaming the world to come, dreaming alive, dreaming alive, can you hear our song? Hi, I'm Nomy.
I'm Rebecca.
And this
is Dreaming
the World
to come.
This is Dreaming the World to Come, a project where we reimagine time and the ways we relate to it, aligning with ancestral Jewish traditions and honoring the diverse voices and experiences of the diaspora, past, present, and future, and the magnificent humans who have been dreaming of a just world for millennia.
Nomy and I are both queer, non-binary, white disabled Jews and Hebrew priestesses or priestesses. We live in the Pacific Northwest on Squaxin land, also known as the Stachos Village, known colonially as Olympia, Washington.
In addition to this podcast, we create a planner that combines Hebrew, Gregorian, and moon calendars. And, we're now in the final month of the 5783 Indwelling Dreams of Olam haBa planner. You can still get that for $5 on our website if you want. But the big exciting news is that we are now making planners available for pre-sale for 5784. And we know that we announced a while back that we would not be doing a 5784 planner, but we figured out a way that we could do it. And we were, as the end of the year approached, we were getting so sad about losing it as a resource for ourselves that we were like, okay, here is what we do have capacity to do. And so it's going to look a little bit different. It'll have a slightly different offering in it. We won't have the contributors that we've had in the past, but it'll still be recognizable if you've been using it and useful if you've never used it before. And you can also, this is our last podcast in this series. We did a full year. So go ahead and start back at the beginning if you want to learn more from past contributors, and you can still get the 5782 and 5783 planners from our website. We are all out of 5781, unfortunately.
Can't get the whole collection.
No, not anymore.
I'm excited about this year's planner, and it was really a way for us to care for ourselves and our own capacities and financial abilities to put it together the way that we are this year. And I think it has some really valuable offerings, and it's been really nice to kind of like reflect back on all of the resources that we've put together and work to put something meaningful together for this year, despite not having the capacity to work with 12 or 13 contributors. So we don't know how it'll look in the future, but I, for one, am very excited to be able to continue to consult the moon cycles, the Hebrew holidays and months, and track my dreams and watch how they're all connected through it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And then maybe now that we have wrapped up the podcast, maybe it'll be time to start working on a book.
Ooh. Wow, Nomy, it's almost the end of the Hebrew year.
Time flies.
It does.
And time crawls.
It does. And it spirals.
And it spirals. It sure does.
Well, what are your associations with the last month of the Hebrew year, Elul?
Elul is like this time of wrap up and preparation. It feels like there's not really specific holidays other than Leil S'lichot, which is like the evening of supplication that is for Ashkenazi communities. I think that's when certain prayers start being said, but for other communities, I think they happen all throughout Elul. And yeah, there's like certain things that you kind of are supposed to do every day. Like you're supposed to blow the shofar every day. Unfortunately, our friend Maurice, I think was his name, did not come through on making the shofarot that I had requested and was going to be a big surprise for you, Rebecca. And then I ruined the surprise at some point and was like, this is happening. And then he just like totally ghosted me. So, but you got yourself a shofar.
I got myself a shofar this year. Yeah. And I am extremely happy about it.
Well, I know you'll be gone for part of Elul, but I would love to hear the shofar every day. I wonder how I can do that. Are you taking your shofar with you?
You know, I wasn't planning on it, but now that we're talking about it, I'm like, want to.
How can I get myself a shofar in time for Elul? Well, anyway, I can figure that out outside of this.
The person that I got it from, which I would really love to promote through the podcast, haBa, who's a queer post-Soviet Arava, yeah, who's a queer post-Soviet Jew. Their Instagram is Zydovka, ZHYD. I think that's a 0 VKA. Oh, I'm just seeing on their Instagram they're doing a raffle right now.
Oh my gosh.
So you should buy like 10 tickets.
I'm going to do that right after this.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason it took me so long to get a shofar, I mean, I've wanted one for decades, is because I didn't want to get one that was made in Israel. And I wanted to get one from like an animal who was humanely raised. And so, but this person has like really developed relationships with farmers, and they're from animals on Turtle Island. And I love my shofar. It's like all black. It's like so beautiful, and I love the sound that it makes, and yeah.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so glad that you have a shofar. I feel like that's been like part of my dream for you for so many years. So I feel like it like
you made it happen. You made it happen, even though it didn't directly happen. Like you were like praying for me for it
for years. Yeah, like being like, "This is the year you're getting your shofar." Yeah, I'm so glad you have it.
Me too.
Yeah, I feel like I never said a shehechiatnu for you about getting your shofar. Brucha at shechina Eloteinu ruach haOlam shehechiatnu v'kiyamatnu v'higiatnu lazman hazeh. Oh, thank you, Goddess, divine, indwelling spirit of the world who has allowed us to get to this moment and get you a shofar.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah.
Now we gotta get you one.
I know, now I need one too. Yeah. I know my thing that I was really wanting was tefillin, which I did get, and actually came to me on Rosh Hashanah a few years ago. Like some man had just like brought them to the temple and dropped them off at the temple, and then somebody else was like, some person gave me these tefillin, I put them in this drawer, I thought maybe someone would want them, and I was standing there, I'm like, I'll take them. And the rabbi was like, yeah, go get them. So he just like walked over to the synagogue and went in and got these tefillin, and now I have them.
Right.
Yeah, miracles. Which we'll get more into in a moment, because you have an offering around miracles.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, other things to do throughout Elul. So the shofar is this waking up time to like take an accounting of your soul. Cheshbon hanefesh is this process of soul accounting that we do throughout Elul in order to prepare us for the days of awe. And the idea is that we want to really have done as much work as we can in ourselves and also with people in our lives. Like we want to go to each other and make amends and tie up any loose ends and try to get as clear as we can in our lives in the world, so that come Yom Kippur, we get to be just in direct communication with the divine in a way that we've done everything we can, and we're just gonna like fall into that connection in a way that's like I'm allowing myself to be fully seen, and that we all do it together. You know, we're not only accounting for ourselves, we're accounting for our whole community. So yeah, so Elul gives us like time to prepare for that. And I was looking at Cheshbon HaNefesh, I guess was a book that was written like early 1800s and part of the Haskalah Jewish Enlightenment movement, which was like an alternative to Hasidism, and also influenced the Musar movement, which is the system for looking at ourselves and cultivating soul traits. So anyway, but yeah, it's just, you know, there's different ways and guidelines of how to do this work, but we all have ways that we're probably doing soul accounting all in our lives already. And you created kind of a, I don't know, is it a guidebook, or you created some little activities that you offer?
Yeah, they're just some activities to. I was in the practice for many years. There's actually like a Yom Kippur Katan that happens every month. So a little Yom Kippur. So it's like reflecting on the past month before the new month begins to do around Rosh Chodesh. And there's also a Jewish practice, I don't remember the name of it, of like each night before you go to bed, reflecting on your day. So Elul is kind of like this month of doing those things that really you're doing throughout the days and months of the year. So these Elul activities are kind of that I came up with a few years ago are kind of a combination of doing those other practices for many years in different forms. And so they're questions to reflect on in the month of Elul. I wrote a bit about making an apology, which there's other wonderful information out there about that as well. And just, yeah, it's just some ways to reflect and suggestions for daily ritual if you move to do that. So we'll put that in the show notes. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for that offering. Yeah. And we had talked some last month, we talked a little bit about the 7 weeks of consolation between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah. And we have a little bit more information to share this month, which is, you know, it's the 7 week period that mirrors the Omer period of 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot. And I just have to say just how incredible the calendar is. Like, it's just so intricately organized. Like, just how these things fit together just blows my mind. But
it seems like people were really like listening, you know, in tune with the earth and listening, and then like using their imagination and like feeling into what was needed.
And finding all this basically like sacred geometry in it too. I guess it's not geometry because it's time, it's different dimension, but
Sacred time.
yeah, I mean sacred timekeeping, which is really at the heart of a lot of what we're doing in this podcast. And but yeah, during the Omer period, each week focuses on a different Sephira on the tree of life, Sephira being an emanation of the divine. So that we start the Omer period with Chesed, which is heart expansion, compassion, loving kindness. And we move through all these different Sephirot. There's one that's about strength and structure and boundaries and strongholding. And then there's one that's about beauty and awe and sublime healing. And then there's one that's about collective liberation and endurance and infinity. And then there's one about time and pacing and gathering power. And then sexuality in the subconscious. I'm like putting my hand where each one is.
Yeah.
Like sexuality in the subconscious and aligned activation. And then Malchut, which is rooting deep, physical reality, also sometimes called Shekhinah, the indwelling presence. So anyway, so we do that whole thing for the Omer. And what I was reading about this mirror time of the 7 weeks of consolation is that we move in the opposite directions. So we start with Malchut, Shekhinah, earth, indwelling presence, and then move up through all those different energies, so that we're then ready for Rosh Hashanah with like just so much of that integrated power and just in full heart expansion, just like ready to embrace the new, which is also the new is also a return, you know. So that feels really interesting. And I also, like I was saying last month, like I love that there's the idea of consolation being a big part of this time, because there's also this like waking up and this accounting, and that can feel kind of harsh, but it's like this reminder to be gentle as we're doing this, that we're doing this out of love for ourselves, love for our community, love for the divine, love of justice. I feel like that's so much of what Teshuvah means returning, basically, and it's the process of accounting for and coming back into wholeness with ourselves and our souls.
Yeah. So that we get it, so that on Yom Kippur, we have this day where we've kind of gone through this self-reflection and accounting, and then we have an opportunity to really feel at one. And that's the original intention of Yom Kippur, feeling that at oneness. And, you know, we say the Al-Chait throughout the days of awe, which is like, yeah, you might be familiar with like tapping your chest. And it's like the community together atoning harm. So you're not alone in looking at the collective and individual harm. And I also feel like there's a need for something else in that moment. So my friend Micah Amichai, who was our guest last month, and I were talking about this one year, a few years ago, and we decided to write some other liturgy that kind of echoes the Al-Chait, and we called it Al-Ness, and we translated that as for the miracle we have enlivened. And so we'll put a link in the show notes to that as well. But it's really celebrating all of the miracles that happened through our life and being alive in the year. So I'll just read a couple of them to give people a taste of it. For the miracle we have enlivened with you inadvertently. So with you meaning spirit, God, Shekhinah. And for the miracle we have enlivened with you through loving words. For the miracle we have enlivened with you when no one is watching in the quiet of our own hearts. And for the miracle we have enlivened with you for all to witness. For the miracle we have enlivened with you of confronting unethical authority, interrupting abusive power, and maintaining loving boundaries. And for the miracle we have enlivened with you of honoring elders, ancestors, and teachers. For the miracle we have enlivened with you, both when it comes with ease and when we work through resistance. And for the miracle we have enlivened with you of allowing our inner truth to empower the choices we make in our lives. Anyway, there are many, many more. And then there's kind of a repeated blessing within the Al-Chait too, or line in the Al-Chait. And ours here is, for all of these, Shekhinah, bless us, and work with us to create more blessings.
That's so beautiful. And it really like mirrors the language of the Al-Chait in a way that, I mean, in a way I'm like, it's really saying so much of the same thing, but just being like, and here's the ways we did it right. It's, you know, I think we are learning as a species and as a culture that guilt and shame and blame isn't necessarily the best teacher. And, you know, it has its place, but also being like, we're so capable of doing it well and doing it right. And look at all the ways we're already doing it well and doing it right. And what are those ways? Like, that's how we build the future that we want to see. So thank you for that beautiful offering.
Yeah, and what we focus on grows. And I think part of the deep learning the learning that I'm deepening this year of listening to my soma, my body, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
that's like my emotions, my spirit, my
Mm-hmm.
physical body, is that when I pay attention to what's gone well or what the blessings are, something in me relaxes and I'm able to have the resource to do more of those things. And when I want to learn from my mistakes, and I think that self-reflection is really valuable and do that frequently, but I haven't in my lifetime have as much of a practice of paying attention to what was done well. So this was an attempt to kind of pivot a bit.
Well, Rebecca, in the spirit of wrapping things up and really focusing on what is positive in a situation, I just want to say what a great joy and honor it's been to create this podcast with you for the past year. It's been really special and sweet to have these conversations and also to have a space to show what our friendship is like, the kinds of conversations that we have together, the things that make us laugh, the ways that we're silly, the ways that we can get really deep together. And so I know the podcast is ending, but the friendship continues into its third decade now. And I'm just so excited for what's to come. Thank you for being my dear friend and chavruta.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that is one of the Elul practices, to have a partner to talk things through with. And that was the exact word I was thinking of. It's like we're doing this public Hevruta study.
Yeah.
And it was your idea to do the podcast. And I was so reticent to be, public, and I feel less comfortable talking publicly. And I'm so grateful that we did it and got to explore in this way and push my boundaries. And you've been so supportive and really made it happen. That yeah, I mean, I really feel like our friendship is like this really testament to like different access needs and meeting each other and stumbling through as we go, but always coming back to our heart and love for each other.
Yeah.
I love you. I appreciate you. I love listening to your songs that you sing on the podcast.
Thank you. I love your meditations too. They're so grounding. They're so supportive. It's like, yeah, it really brings a needed energy to the center of each podcast. And I will say also that this has been really helpful for me in developing my leadership skills and my ability to speak about these things in a way that feels really authentic. And, I led services at the local temple this last week, and I could just feel, I was like, oh, this is, I think, because of the podcast, that I just felt much more casual and conversational in my ability to communicate about prayer and Jewish tradition. And so, yeah, thank you for supporting me and nurturing that as well.
Yeah. I mean, this whole project has built a lot of my confidence as a Jewish leader. And I know so much more than I did a few years ago when we started. And I bring really different things, but we have a really similar set of values.
Yeah.
So it's very generative.
Yeah. So thank you, Rebecca, and thank you to all of you who've been with us on this journey, whether you've only listened to one or two episodes or you've listened to every single one. It means a lot to us that you have witnessed this, and we hope it's been supportive for you as well.
Amen. Thank you, everyone. Please let us know your thoughts and about your projects and what you're up to in the world. We love hearing and learning about new things, and just any contemplation or feedback is really welcome. Or if this prompted something in your life, we would love to know.
Yeah. Keep in touch.
Dreaming alive, dreaming alive, dreaming the world to come.
Melissa, welcome.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you here.
What a pleasure.
Yeah, just so excited to connect with you and learn more about your life and your work, which I know I've benefited from a lot. So thank you in advance.
Thank you.
Yeah, Melissa.
Likewise.
Melissa, I know you from the JVP haBa network. But do we know each other before that? I don't think so. But we just have some people in common in the world. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to read your bio. Melissa Nussbaum Freeman, her goddess, is a queer Sephardi Ashkenazi self-loving anti-Zionist abolitionist who uses theater, art, and ritual to stir the good trouble pot as often as possible. Passion is her motor. Her backup engine is a wild belief in the change that moves towards justice. And you can contact her at melissa@jvp.org.
We'll put a longer link in the show notes as well.
Okay,
to learn
great.
more about her work.
Okay, great. So, yeah, Melissa is a mover and a shaker, and so many interesting things about you and your life. And when you started being in this role at Jewish Voice for Peace, what is your official role name?
My official role name is Spiritual and Cultural Life Manager.
Oh, yes.
Otherwise known as also Spirit and Cultural Organizing Manager, which I actually like better. I'm just trying to organize a bit.
Not try to live everyone's life.
No.
Or manage everyone's life.
No, I like the organizing better. Yeah.
But I feel like
Nice.
since you've stepped into that role, that JVP, Jewish Voice for Peace, like has grown in these just really incredible ways. You're such an amazing community builder, organizer, and bringing like spirit and creativity to the whole process. I felt when you came into this role, like I felt so much more engaged in the work and also seen of who I am and what I have to offer. And I imagine that many other people felt that way too, with your role. And it's such a like important part of being like a spiritual leader is to recognize what other people have to offer and welcome them in. So thank you.
Yeah.
Wow. It's beautiful to hear. Sometimes, especially in our online life, what send out things into the ether and you don't get a lot back necessarily. And so it's great to hear. Yeah.
Well, you wrote the piece about Elul, which is the final month in the cycle of the year before Rosh Hashanah. And I'm wondering if you want to share something about either your process of writing it or anything about the piece that you want to share with our listeners.
Sure. It was so powerful. First of all, just being invited to be part of this cohort for me was a real honor. And I felt like, wow, this is such an amazing opportunity for me to dive into a month. And I could have chosen any month, but I love Elul because the accounting that we have to do. And Elul just is this 30-day wake-up call and invitation to get really close to yourself and really close to your, I would call it power in the sense of the divine. Really get that essential, deepest place. And, we have these great spiritual tools. The technology is there. And Elul just abounds with that technology. So just even using a shofar, I just love that so much because it's just like when you get into it, the sound really does just go in and stirs something on a very deep level. And, it's so typical, or our mode of operating is keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, don't stop. Well, we do have the amazing technology of Shabbat. So that's like built in, but this is like one big giant Shabbat, it's like not to stop everything you're doing in that sense, but really in that observant looking in and taking toll. So I loved contemplating that. So that's Chesbon Hanefesh, the soul accounting. But then that really leads you to Teshuvah. And Teshuvah is like just, I think that's like the answer to so much right now. That being accountable about the injury that has been done, and what's your part in it, So I really appreciated the opportunity to just dig into that and think about that a lot. Yeah.
And
I love the way that you gave examples from your own self for, here's a way of doing this like that, and just like so honest and really naming Palestinian liberation and crimes against Palestine as like such a deep part of that work. Thank you for being so explicit.
And for people listening, the word
teshuvah
means return. And it's the process of reflecting and coming back to who we really are, our most authentic, true selves, and is part of the process.
And to wholeness.
To wholeness, right? Yeah. And that's part of that's what Melissa was referring to.
Yeah.
I want to quote Rabbi Lynn Gottlieb and her work on Teshuvah, which is so deep, and she really makes a connection of what's happening on Turtle Island, or what has happened to indigenous people, to Native people here, and to Black people, and to what's happening in Palestine to Palestinians. That it's so. This is the part of accountability that I wish for our community. And when I say our community, I think, in the small of like the people listening to this podcast, and then outside of this community, like the Jewish community as a whole, like, can we really honestly say we're looking at ourselves, we're being accountable, we're asking for forgiveness, if we're not holding the standard of justice and equality to Palestine?
Yeah.
And I think I see that as the big work.
Yeah.
And asking the questions like, why would people not apply that to Palestinians? What is the level of fear? Why is it so great that we can blot out our highest values?
I know.
It just goes to show how the media programming, it was all planned out. All the allies in World War II, to purposefully create this story about Israel and create this complete, undying, unquestionable allegiance to Israel. And then, of course, Jews all over the world are still like a very focused on justice and equity. But then because the programming is so much about fear, it's like, just be scared that we're going to get killed again.
And be scared even about losing Jewish community. I feel like that's it's so damaging to feel like I'm going to go be with my Jewish community to observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but I'm not going to be able to talk about Palestine because I know that will cause rifts that I don't feel prepared to deal with when I'm trying to have a holy experience, you know. It's like it's damaging to our spirits to not be able to fully do teshuva, you know. That's
Yeah,
not wholeness then.
right, right. And I think having spaces where we can bring our whole selves, politically, emotionally, spiritually, every aspect of who we are, we can bring all of that to one place is essential to
Yeah.
well-being.
That's part of what's been so wonderful about your role with Jewish Voice for Peace is like, oh, this is like an organized Jewish space where people can be spiritual, anti-Zionist, creative, activists, all in one place. And for me, the intersection of all of those things is my spirituality, is my Jewish identity. That's my and that it's been such a small niche before this, like,
Yes.
you know, that's just been like, oh, my group of friends for 25 years, you know, but to have like more organized spaces, I mean, it's all really important, but that's part of like what needs to be creative. Like I always say that about our work, and my work is like that it's about a culture shift. It's like changing the narrative.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I was thinking that might be a good transition point to ask, what was your relationship to Jewishness like growing up?
So I grew up in a secular home in Brooklyn. My maternal grandfather was a cantor, but he also was a communist. And he worked in the garment district. He was a cutter. And he just loved to sing. He had a brother who was a rabbi and came from a fairly religious family, but he was very adamant about rights, and all he wanted to do was talk about the Black Panthers. And
this is your grandfather?
This is my grandfather.
That's
and
so
my
cool.
My grandfather was a Stalinist, which nobody understood, but my father was a communist also. And so I'm what's called a red diaper baby.
Yeah.
And there was no spirituality in the house, although I have always, since I was a little girl, looked for it. And my best friend was Roman Catholic, and I just thought everything she had was fantastic, you know, like church was like, had rosaries and candles and stained glass windows and special gestures and, you know, genuflecting and, you know, just the whole thing. I just thought it was so magical. And I wanted the magic. I wanted that part of spirituality that is magic. And I just got, what you see is what you get. And this science rules. And so I started my own personal spiritual quest very young. My parents didn't let me go to Hebrew school. All my friends went to Hebrew school, but they didn't let me go because it was Zionist indoctrination. So I felt very isolated. And it wasn't until I was in my 20s that there was a really rich community in terms of Jews from every kind of background, from being from Orthodox families to secular to first generation immigrants or third generation, completely assimilated. And we had a Shabbos group, and we just like examined who we were, what did we know. And so I didn't have any kind of formal education. It was very eclectic. It was whatever I could gather.
Interesting.
Yeah. One thing that I connect to in my personal history, my legacy, I think, is my great grandmother in the Ukraine was the woman who could read and led women in prayer. And when I was in college, a friend took a picture of me, and I had a kerchief on my head and very much in the style that my grandmother, my great grandmother, because it was my mother's great grandmother.
Wow.
So Pearl.
Oh, Pearl.
Pearl, yes. And my grandmother looked at the picture and she said, "Oh, you look just like my grandmother." And there's something about leading, like being the one who can lead people in some kind of important, that touched me.
I'm just
Yeah.
getting shivers as
That's
you
so amazing.
said that. I was so moved and thinking about the Eastern European and Russian women's tradition of techines, this spontaneous prayers and supplications, and just mentioning your grandmother Pearl as someone who is leading people with those prayers.
Yeah. And I have a Sephardi great grandfather who I haven't gotten lots of details about, but is just keeps showing up in my life. Is just really present. Is really a theme also. So it's like those two strands.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So your current Jewish community, I know about JVP and would love to hear more about that. And I'm just wondering if there are other places, or like, how does your Jewish self show up in your community now?
Yeah. When Israel started bombing Gaza in 2014, I had just moved back to Boston, and that's when I discovered JVP. And I was really desperate. I was just like, I have to do something. And I felt at that moment like, okay, I have got to step up as a Jew so that I can speak out with more authority against Israel. I don't actually believe that anymore. I believe everybody has the right to speak up, and I believe everybody should feel that they're an authority as a human being. And then as an American citizen, those are our tax dollars, you have a right to say no. But at the time I felt, that's 8 years ago, I think 9 years. It was even more people challenged you more about, oh, you can't say anything against Israel unless you're Jewish, and even then, like questioning whether you're anti-Semitic. And
Self-hating Jew.
Say now I'm a proud anti. Yes, that kind of ridiculous, and I was like, well, wait, if I'm not really Jewish, maybe, are they going to challenge me about that I'm exactly self-hating? So besides the things that I already loved about Judaism and that I held as very dear, I thought, okay, I've got to dig in deeper. And then joining JVP, I was like, okay, if you need somebody to be in front of a crowd or to lead a ritual, I'm your gal. And so I started leading rituals that I didn't even know. So I had to find out about them, and I had to study, and there's nothing like doing or teaching to make you learn something. And I had the opportunity to study with Taproot, and that was a year-long program for spiritual activists. And it's funny because I really thought it was for activists who are also spiritual, or like the spirituality that you need in order to be an activist. But it was actually being a spiritual activist. It served me in a very deep way, and I really finally got more of the formal education that I needed.
And Melissa, you're also like over the course of your life, you've been a midwife, you've worked in theater, you've done so many things.
I'm still a theater person.
Yeah.
I know. Sometimes it's like, oh, I don't know who would believe all that. Well, I was midwife. I'm still a midwife, but I don't practice. It's kind of one of those things that you don't, stop being it.
Yeah.
Because it's a way of looking at the world and relating to life. My own personal path has been, I need to understand something, so I become it. And I study it and I become it. And so I needed to heal. And so I became a healer. And then I became a mother. But before I became a mother, I became a midwife because I was going in that direction. And I had to understand, I was always working with women. So of course I had to understand all the cycles. And so it was also menstruation, motherhood, menopause, crone. And then I was like, once I got to be a crone, I was like, I have to go back to my first love or I'm going to be a cranky old lady. And my first love was theater. So I went back to theater school.
It's really inspiring hearing about the ways that you embrace the learnings and then bring them into your life and incorporate them into your life. You're such a big person and filled with so much love and creativity and passion. So I'm curious, like, given all of this, like, how are you, we like to ask everyone, how are you dreaming the world to come?
I'm really inspired by abolitionists. So people like Miriam Kaba and, well, of course, Angela Davis is probably my maximum heroine. And then the women that I work with in Boston who aren't as famous, but are also equally inspiring. They just all say you have to live right now the world that you're imagining. That it's not, there's no postponing. Abolition isn't just the lack of the carceral system, and that would be more like a result of real abolition. No police, everybody has what they need, respect for the land, for our resources, for the beings that we can see and that we can't see. Just, it makes me act. Be an activist, makes me feel like, no, there's no putting off. So in my world, my future world is today.
Beautiful.
I hope it gets better, but I'm really, this morning I was at I have a plot in a community garden in the city and near where I used to live. And I love this community garden because there's like 133 plots and there's all these different languages are spoken and all these different ways of growing things. And I built a mobile several years ago, and it has tubes, and I hang things that I find. When I was a little girl, because I was told that there was no God, I asked my father if it was okay if I believed in Pippi Longstocking.
I was also a believer in Pippi Longstocking as a child.
Right. I mean, find your models where you can, right? But one thing that Pippi taught me was to be a finder, right? She always discovered things, so she's always finding things. This mobile has things that I find in the garden, like a piece of metal and stuff. And 7:00 in the morning, I was there retaping, putting new colors on the mobile. And there was a gardener there, and he just was admiring, and he just said, "We need that here." And I just felt like, it wasn't just important to me, but it like enriched his life too in some way. And it's just like, so beauty, I'm thinking about beauty. I'm thinking about a lot of beauty There's a
Yeah.
lot of beauty in this world to come, besides everybody having what they need.
Mm-hmm.
What they need is also beauty.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
Ruth Wilson Gilmore, who's just another amazing abolitionist, Dr. Ruth Gilmore, says, life is precious where life is precious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Amen.
Amen.
It's a beautiful prayer.
I'm so moved by that story. People can't see I'm crying, but that these little things that we do to make our world more beautiful really matter.
They really matter.
Mm. Melissa, thank you so much for making this time today and all the ways that you offer community and connection, and the ways that you've invited us in, and the ways that you've responded to our invitation. I'm just so grateful to know you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making
Thank you
our
so
life more
much.
beautiful. We really value you and all that you bring to our world, and it's a lot.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Grapevine meditation for the month of Elul. Let's take some breaths in and out, and bring to mind the tang of grape juice or wine or grape off the vine. Grapes provide so much nourishment for our time of reviewing the year, and a tang to keep our senses alive and our focus on the beauty and transformation possible through this review. Like the grapes that will be soon mashed up and turned into wine and grape juice, we too are going through a big transformation as we approach the days of awe. And in ancient times, both on the 15th of Av, Tu B'Av, and also on Yom Kippur, people danced in the vineyards for fertility, for seeking love. So we're reminded in this time that our self-reflection and our preparation for our most holy day is in tribute to the earth's transformation, transmutation, that our deep bodies are also as earth bodies on a journey through and towards and spiraling back and forth. I'm just taking some deep breaths in and out, letting this little teaching soak in, feeling your goodness for any reflecting and preparation you are amidst. This is the part of our podcast where we talk about inspirational things happening in the world or living examples of the world to come that we're already experiencing. We call it This Way to Olam haBa. So this month on This Way to Olam haBa, we want to speak to reparations, which is something that is near and dear to both of us. And this year, we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that we've been involved in a project to create safe housing for a family in our community that's been affected by anti-Black police violence. And we have been deep in that work this year, many ups and downs to it. You couldn't even imagine all the loopholes and challenges along the way, but we've gotten some really wonderful direction and mentorship and support from other people who've done similar work, and we're continuing to move forward to mobilize our community and beyond.
Yeah, it's really looking like the project of actually securing safe housing, aka buying a home for this specific family, might end up being more of a national campaign rather than a local campaign, because they might choose not to stay here. And also because Olympia has not been a supportive place for them. And we were really hoping to change that, but I think it's such a long game to really change that in the big picture. And if what they feel like they need to be safe is to be somewhere else, we still want to support them being able to do that. And so, yeah, we're continuing to work on it. If you follow either of us, you'll continue to learn more as we go. But also, as part of this, one thing that is very, very clear is that the Jewish community needs more spaces to learn about racial justice and reparations and teshuva. And so during the month of Elul, we're going to be offering a couple of sessions at the local temple at Temple Beth Hatfilo on teshuva and reparations. And we're using some materials that I developed with Rabbi Elliot Kukla a few years ago. We did a racial justice and teshuva series that was kind of a small group of people that we knew. And so using some of that material, and then also wanted to share about this curriculum called the Stolen Beam Study Series that was created by the Jewish community of Amherst. And basically it came from internal work that was done by a group of folks in their community who are interested in racial justice and reparations, and who worked together for 6 months in a study group and then shared these materials with the world. And it's called the Stolen Beam Study Series because of a teaching that's related to a Talmudic debate. Basically, what is the right thing to do if we discover that the house in which we live was built with stolen materials or a stolen beam? And so I'm quoting from some of the materials that they put out. It says, one rabbi argues that the entire house must be torn down and the beam returned. Another argues that it makes no sense to destroy the home, yet some form of acknowledgement and compensation is owed to the owners of the beam. We therefore use the metaphor of the stolen beam in recognition of the fact that much of our country was built on stolen land. I mean, all of it was, with stolen lives and stolen labor. So I think that's I think it's really helpful to use Jewish teachings as a way in to Jewish minds and hearts to talk about reparations and our place in making amends and doing teshuva for the harms that have been done to Black and Indigenous people, and the ways that we've benefited from that. So yeah, we're offering, I mean, it's for our local community, but it's also going to be online. There's a session on August 20th and another on September 10th. You can register at the Temple Beth Hatfilo website, and it's it's our local community. It's a different kind of community than who's drawn to our individual offerings that we make. And so this is a part of our own tshuva, is having conversations with people who are in a lot of different places who might not already have done a lot of work around what reparations might look like in their lives. So, I think Rebecca and I both have a lot of practice around redistribution of resources and thinking about how that works and how to activate that in our community around mutual aid. And for a lot of people, institutional giving is still seen as like the way. Reparations can be a part of that, but
I do want to say that you all are invited to come, and we welcome that, and we'll continue to do adjacent offerings probably for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
So this is a long process, but I have a renewed hope the last few years that we're moving in this direction, and the Reconstructionist movement has adapted a resolution for reparations. So it will continue, hopefully, to ripple in big ways.
Yeah, and I guess I want to just say there's a lot of need in our communities, and there are also so many resources that we have. And so just as part of our teshuva process this month, thinking about ways that we all can move those resources around, and not thinking of them as like privately owned resources, but just resources that are needed and where do they need to go. That's been really helpful for me in thinking about, what is mine, how much am I giving, and whose is it really? And yeah, just kind of reorienting to Mama Earth in that way. Amen.
And with that, we conclude this podcast series. It's been an adventure and a joy, and thanks for listening, everyone. Here's being in person and crossing paths in many other ways.
Can you hear us on? Yes. We wanted to share, we are going to keep our Patreon open. Thank you so much to everybody who has supported us through the Patreon. It's really helpful. We just worked out some of the numbers and figured out that Patreon paid for about a quarter of the expense of putting out this podcast. So thank you, and also thank us for this labor of love.
Yes. And thank you especially to Nomy, who did free labor of editing and put a lot of time and energy into editing the podcast this year. So thank you, Nomy. It was really, really well edited. And also Kim Wayman, who is our one employee. And both of you learned a whole new skill set with this.
Yeah, so we'll keep the Patreon open. You can continue to support us, or you can not, whatever you want. We'll probably repost the podcast of the month each month and share any additional content that was created. We'll share plant teachings and resources, and this will continue to support our work. So you're welcome to keep supporting us on Patreon, and also go buy the 5784 planner. It is now up for pre-sale and will be to you in time for Rosh Hashanah. So we're super excited to be able to make this offering again. And happy Elul.
Happy Elul. And this year's planner is simply called Dreaming the World to Come.
Dreaming the World to Come, 5784.
That's it.
Yeah. That's what we're doing. Doing it and doing it and doing it.
Keeping on. All right. Sweet dreams, everyone.
Yeah. Happy Elul. See you in the world to come. Lulei Hemanti, lirot betuv Hashem, be'eretz chaim. Lulei Hemanti, lirot betuv Hashem, be'eretz chaim. Kaveh Shechina, Kaveh Shechina, Kaveh Shechina, Chazak va'ametz libeh. Oh how I trusted that I would see God's good in this living land. Oh how I trusted I would see God's good in this living land. Stay open, open to the one. Stay open, open to the one. Stay open, open to the one. May your heart be open to the one. Stay open, open to the one. Stay open, open to the one. Stay open, open to the one. May your heart be open to the one. May your heart be open to the one.